So this is an iron, this is a driver. What is the difference? Well, we're going to look at that in this short video series. Today we're going to cover the differences in setup between your iron clubs and your driver. So welcome back to the 14th hole here at the Forest of Arden. So we know that when we play golf, we have to be pretty good at changing between our iron clubs, our driver, maybe our wedges, our putter, and they all have slightly different techniques, they all have slightly different setups, and we're going to cover that in this video. We're going to look at the difference in setup between your iron clubs and your driver and why those differences are there. So just before we get started, if you are new to my channel, if you have stumbled across this video for the first time, I would love you to be part of my channel and we can help you play some better golf. The subscription is absolutely free. It just means you'll get notified whenever I upload a video and you won't miss any of the content. There is a clickable link at the end of the video which will allow you to do just that. So let's start with the iron. Now the real key differences here and why we have a different setup is that we're really trying to do different things down at impact. With the iron clubs, most of the time, unless you're on a par 3, the ball is played from the ground. With the driver, again, 99% of the time the ball is teed up, and that changes a lot of what we're trying to do. So when the ball is on the ground, we need the golf club to strike the ball with a slightly descending blow. That's why you'll see many of the best players taking divots or taking earth after the golf ball. When that ball is teed up as it is with the driver, to maximise distance, we actually want the golf club to travel up away from the ground and hit the ball as it's travelling upwards. And there lies the differences in what we're trying to do. Our setup, therefore, has to reflect those differences. So let me take my starting position with my 6 iron. I've chosen 6 iron because it's pretty much in the middle of my bag. Now, you'll notice that I have that golf ball placed fractionally forward of centre. Now, the golf ball position will vary slightly based on the individual and what you're trying to do with your golf swing and what you're trying to achieve at impact. But the ball position is going to be pretty close to centre, if not just a little bit further forward. You'll also notice that when I set up, I have a good amount of lean forward in the golf club, so you can see that my grip is closer to the target than the club head. And what that does is it allows me to sort of preset the fact that I'm looking for that slightly downward strike. You'll also notice that my buttons on my shirt or my head are relatively close to the middle of my heels. I also like to see with an iron, I like to see a little bit more pressure, a little bit more weight into that lead side, and I do that through a little bit of a hip bump towards the target. So as I set up, I'm feeling fractionally more pressure in my lead side. I have the ball pretty much central in my stance, I have the handle length forwards, and I have my standard golf grip. Those things should help me as I try to make this descending blow, hit the ball, then the turf, and get that kind of elusive strike that we're all after. Now, when I take my driver and I set up, if I were to set up in the same way, that's going to be pretty disastrous because that setup, again, is going to create those same delivery conditions. I'm after some different delivery conditions, as we've kind of already said, so I have to adapt my setup to that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have the golf ball positioned much more forward in my stance, very close to this lead heel. I'm also going to have a slightly wider stance, so my base gets a little bit wider. Apart from the feet being further apart, I don't now want to have more pressure into my lead side. I like to look for about a 50-50 weight distribution. When I have the club head behind the ball, we're now looking for a golf club which is very neutral, as in it's not leaning towards the target. It's actually very, very neutral. That's going to help us, okay, because we don't want to hit down on the golf ball. The wider stance helps me set my upper body behind the golf ball. So my head and my buttons are now still roughly in the middle of my heels, but they're much further behind the golf ball. What I'd like to do to really start to just help that golf club move upwards a little bit through the hit is actually just tilt my upper body a little bit away from the target. Notice how that's not coming from my hips, it's just coming from my upper body. So my upper body relative to the ball, we've now seen a huge difference in those setups. And as you can see on the screen there, the two setups, when you look at them side by side, they look quite different. We can see how the ball position with the driver is much more ahead of my sternum, and with the iron it's much more in line with my sternum. The fact that we've got a wider stance with the driver and narrower stance with the irons is a difference, and obviously we've got that shaft angle again, which is slightly different. So what we're really saying here is that to be skilled at the game of golf, we have to appreciate that there's different deliveries to the golf ball with the clubs in your bag. The driver is very much on its own because that's really the only club in the bag where we want this really upward hit. The setup has to encourage that to happen. All too often we'll see golfers setting up too much like an iron. The delivery is therefore much like an iron. When that ball is teed up, the two just don't really work, and we have to kind of change that setup to get that to happen a little bit better. So let's go ahead and hit a couple of shots here with the driver and the iron and seeing if we can get those setup changes to change how we deliver the club to impact. So there's my setup: ball forward, wide stance, neutral shaft, a little bit of upper body tilt, and that should help me create this upward hit. Obviously, as we'd expect there, no contact with the ground, which is what we want. Then we move into the 6 line where we have a narrower stance. We have the ball more in the middle of the stance. We have the weight a little bit more on the lead side. We have the handle length forwards. And that setup helps me deliver the club in a very, very different way and make contact with the ground, as you can see there, after the golf ball. So the setups are really there to change how the club is delivered to the ball. If we get the wrong delivery with the wrong club, so a driver delivery with an iron or an iron delivery with a driver, we're really going to run into trouble. And that's where we start to hit those really terrible shots where we top it along the ground, or we fat it, or we sky the ball into the air. And that's often because the delivery is not necessarily wrong, but it just doesn't match that club that's in your hands. Making sure the setup is correct is the best way to make sure the delivery is as it needs to be with that golf club. Obviously, there was going to be some differences in the swing as well, and that's going to be the second video which is going to follow this one. This one is really just covering the setup. As I say, we're going to cover the swing then and go through the differences between how you swing your driver and how you swing your irons. But job number one is to get that setup right and make sure you're aware of the differences and why they are there. Thanks for watching. Usual stuff is down below, comments box, like button, and over there, subscribe link. That will allow you to be a free subscriber of my channel, and we can help you play some better golf this year. Thanks for watching.